Hi, I'm Claire,
Christy, and Janine. We're three marketers that have spent decades in talent tech and recruitment, facing the same challenges and watching the same mistakes play out over and over again.
We started What's the Point because we're tired of the fluff, vanity marketing, and wasted budgets that never drive real growth.
This podcast is straight talk for marketers and leaders who want marketing that actually works. No jargon, no egos, just hard-won lessons and practical advice that will help you scale your business.
In order to make a fundamental shift in how leaders see marketing and how marketers themselves can feel confident in the value that they're adding, we have to get better at linking revenue to marketing. We've invited Matt Gallivan, Sales Director at JobAdder for EMEA and North America, to help us unpack this issue today. So hi, Matt.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi. So let's dive straight in, Matt. Marketing, we know, isn't just a cost center. It's not just for communication. It's supposed to drive revenue and move that needle. So why don't more CEOs see it that way? Why don't they talk about it more? Why don't they incentivize their marketers in that way?
I don't think it comes from anything malicious. I think it just comes from education. A lot of them have come through where they are revenue centric and they've owned that pipeline. They've owned that revenue generation model. And maybe it's through experience and they've just not had that value brought through. But they're missing this massive untapped market as part of their role that says, who's here to support me? And what we see a lot of this, especially in TA, is they've come through the sales channel. A lot of CEOs have owned their own number from a very early part of their career. And as they progress through, they've not maybe had the exposure or interaction with marketing to understand the revenue potential that it holds and the importance it holds within their own pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see it differently in tech compared to staffing, or is it the same?
Yeah. Oh, massively. We see it as a GTM function. So we are one in the same. So go to market, for those new to it, but I often refer to it as we are opposite sides to the same coin. So we bring very different things to it. We have the same goals. We have the same output. How we get to those things are very different. And that's fine because we bring our own expertise. But what I'm seeing in a lot of TA is that, within tech, is it's a very either or. Marketing is either intrinsic to what they do or it's a nice to have. And I've worked with leaders in the past who, and you'll forgive me for saying this because I don't believe it, but they bring in the marketing girl. We've got a marketing girl over there and she does all of our marketing. And by that, they mean look after social media. They mean make things look pretty. And you're like, you have so missed the point of what this role is here to do and the value that it adds. And so we just see so many founders, as I said, they come from this sales heavy background and they've just missed the point of how much they're leaving on the table by not involving marketing as a step by step, everything from initial strategy to goal setting to even redefining what you're doing mid-quarter, mid-half, mid-year, that allows you to say, where are we focused and where can we move the needle? It is not just, okay, that looks pretty over there, that's great. Can you produce something for me? They're missing a trick massively.
I think that I wrote down here, Matt, owned their own number. And I think that's such a big part of it. And you see this in businesses all the time when it is, that a sales heavy organization, whether it be a recruitment business or otherwise. And that individual who's that amazing salesperson who's, delivered amazing numbers sets off on their own. And they're fabulous at what they do. I'm not taking away from that. But more often than not, they actually probably haven't been sitting in the boardroom. They've not been sitting looking at the numbers, the P&L month after month. And therefore even having the discussions. And I think we concentrate on marketing, but I don't think we're probably alone. I think there's probably a lot of other operational functions that probably feel very similarly. Yeah. And part of it, I think, is just that leader who's now this leader of this scaling business. Just, I also like what you said, that they're certainly not doing it maliciously. They just, they just don't necessarily know.
So how do we change it?
Well, you don't know what you don't know. So if you've been this amazing salesperson, what happens in sales is they're often not developed into future leaders because they go down one of two routes. So they're either an individual contributor or they become people leaders. But even when they do become people leaders, there's not enough education there to really enrich the role moving forward. And we see it time and time again. They're very good in their own role. They set up on their own, and they've never done the actual business acumen side of it to understand what the other seats at that board table actually contribute. And I think a lot of that has got to be, we've got to acknowledge the problem in the first place. And that's really hard to do when you think one way is the right way to do things, and this is how what success looks like. But also off the back of that, I think we've just got to be really good at calling it out and saying, do you know what, I need help here, and bringing that in, because as individual contributors, we're not good at that. Their history will tell them they've owned a number, they've sold it, and they are what's good. They are what's celebrated in that process, not the myriad of other things that go into making that successful.
I wonder if as well, Matt, there's that whole, we've done it like this so far. We've been okay. Why would we rock the boat by having another voice at the table? But I think you really kind of, and we've had the pleasure of working together. So I know Matt is fully inclusive in terms of his style of leadership, but it is a team sport. It's very much all of us together. You know, collaboration is definitely king here, and it's always going to be a win out versus a single point of view and perspective or strategy that's just come from one place. So you can't chase down. And actually, this is my point. My point is, there isn't just one target. There isn't just one goal. In commercial reality, it's, yes, we need to win new business, but yes, we need to retain business. And yes, we need to make sure our team are happy and educated and can do their job really well. So we're constantly thinking about the tone of voice, the relationship, the experience. That's marketing in every essence. And yes, to some extent, everybody's got to own that and deliver on it. But the actual marketing strategy for business and the marketing strategy for sales, they're always multi-pronged. So you can't operate in a silo. It just, the science won't, quite easily and quite quickly, you get found out.
I suppose the only thing I would disagree with is you can absolutely operate in a silo. It just won't be successful.
Yes.
You're not going to grow.
Yeah.
You are more than welcome to go and do that. But experience has shown me that those who do work in silos, they reach a limit, and it is very much, you have this person back at the top, who is who it's feeding their ego, and you're right, it's letting go of the reins and saying, okay, who else can I bring in here and they can contribute? But we've always done it this way, and look where we've grown, and we've grown to whatever their goal is, but X number of pounds or head count or whatever that looks like. But what you actually miss out in that, and I think one of the things I enjoy is we have GTM workshops once a quarter where we all get in and we all have an equal voice in that. And what that means is that marketing are able to say what they're doing with product at the moment that is coming down the line, and how they're working with product to get that message out, and influence based on the feedback they're hearing from the market into what we should be building. I know ahead of time what's going on with that. It's not a surprise that goes, oh, by the way, look what we're bringing out here. We have that with product, marketing, finance. Everyone that has a touch point with the customer has an equal voice. And what that's meant for us, and to come back to what you're saying about targets, is that we have a joint target. So that's the way we operate at the moment. I actually have a joint target with marketing around pipeline generation, outreach, whether that's target accounts. We own the target. I don't own the target. Our marketing lead doesn't own the target. We own it, and we report on it jointly. So there is joint accountability.
Let's talk metrics then. If you're talking about joint reporting, I think as marketers understand that there's a level of vanity metrics versus commercial metrics that might talk better at CEO, sales leader level. Using your experience as a sales leader, Matt, what really works and what doesn't? What works for you? What does sales need to hear from marketing? And how can marketing contribute better?
that's a really hot topic because I hear this time and time again. When I've worked in the past where targets in those metrics are individual to marketing, sales, product, finance, whatever that looks like, what they will do is they will present the metrics that best suit them to make them look in a good light. And we've all done that. Let's not pussyfoot around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all done it. But it comes back to that owned metric. So often you'll see salespeople say, MQLs don't mean anything to me because we've not qualified it. Of course they do. That is the top of funnel, that is stuff that's coming through. You absolutely want MQLs. But it's all the other conversions that come in there. So what is the MQL to SQL ratio? What does it deliver in terms of value of pipeline? In terms of, is it ICP1, ICP2? All of these things need to be, and this is what comes with this joint ownership that we have that says, I am just as much invested in MQLs as I am SQLs and conversions. But so is marketing, because at the end of the day, their goals are the same as mine. So I think what we have to look at with that is the vanity metrics are stuff that we do to make us feel better. Oh, look how much I've produced, rather than what is the one true goal that we're all working towards. That might be a revenue number, that might be engagement, it might be something as simple as brand opportunity. But all of those things directly impact me, and it's the difference between focusing on looking good today or succeeding tomorrow.
I think you kind of hit the top when you said funnel, because again, we as marketeers are very conscious that we are filling the top of the funnel, and we're bringing that pipeline and able to really develop that pipeline from a very good clarity base from the very get-go. So knowing who the ICP is, ICP for those that don't know, ideal client profile. You can have a number of them within your strategy as well. So you might have different buyer types, you might have different job titles that are your target audience, and their use and or world in which they can interact with your products and services will be very different. So a lot of work needs to be done. But again, that kind of groundwork needs to be done in conjunction with your sales team. You can't possibly operate isolation, because if you turn around and say, yeah, this is all ICP1, and your sales team have got a totally different definition of what the ICP is, you're going to be at total odds from the get-go. So you've got that. Then the middle of the funnel aspects are always going to be around, is our content resonating? Is it drawing people into those demo conversations, or as we would like to call it, a discovery conversation? Because at that point, we can't possibly demo something that we haven't even identified is actually really going to be in need, or a solution that needs to be, kind of bought. So at the point where we're trying to refine the tire kicking kind of commodity piece, we're not wasting time with sales. They're not on demo calls that aren't with real life, kind of opportunities. The bottom of the funnel, this is where we kind of get a bit like less hands-on for us as marketeers and a little bit more hands-on with sales. So you go from marketing qualified lead, MQL, to SQL, which is where sales are qualifying the lead that they've got. And that is really up to you guys, right, Matt? That's basically you looking at all of the ways in which someone's interacted with the brand, with the content, qualified themselves into a conversation, and then it's all about discovery.
Yeah, and it's about what does good look like, and we're very clear about. We don't expect every single thing to come through is going to be this amazing quality. As somebody saying, "I want to buy now, send me a contract." It's about the intent. These people are in the market. They're ICP fit. They've engaged with our content. But it's interesting that when you mention about that, where they are in the funnel, because one of the things we've done really well is we engage marketing at every stage of the funnel. So if it's mid funnel and things aren't moving, can we send some stuff to them? So we'll send some stuff, a reminder we're still here. We'll invite them to certain events that are very much targeted at them. But at at that bottom end of the funnel when we're closing stuff, that's a feedback loop where marketing should be involved to say this is closed because it was good at this stage. We've done this. These things have worked. It's a feedback loop that allows marketing to say, right, these campaigns have been successful because these campaigns haven't been successful because. and involving them. And this, again, I'm going to keep harping back to this, but this joint ownership of target means that they are fundamentally interested in conversion at every stage, but also sales are willing to give that feedback that isn't as simple as, it's not ICP, so I can't close it, or they're not interested right now, that's a bad MQL. No, what cadence do we put them in? They're not looking right now, but they are a future customer. So where do they now fit in it? Having the salespeople understand what that marketing funnels look like and those cadences look like means that we can just directly put them where they need to be.
Yeah, that partnership's great, especially in that mid-funnel piece. Because again, if you're curating the messaging and sales are actually talking the same talk, how much more powerful is that than waiting, for a demo button to be pressed to then 2 days later get a phone call, to have missed the opportunity to, people move on and forget really quickly. And if they've not got it in their hands there and then when they need a solution, really, what's the point?
Yeah, and I hear lots of people saying to me about getting rid of MQLs. I love MQLs. They're a very good test of what's working and what's not. It's the conversion that is also the key metric in there, not just the volume. Volume is a vanity metric. Conversion is something that is tangible about, is this campaign working for us or not?
And I think this funnel, I think it's whether it's more understood or it's easier in the tech world. What about the agency world, Christy? What do we see?
I think there's a big misconception of the MQL to SQL piece of it is possibly a maturity or understanding of what that is, and possibly never having done it before or never having experienced it. So, either, this is quite well spoken of and documented possibly, that, there's some voices out there that say, if you started in recruitment in the last 10 years, you don't actually know how to sell. You don't know how to do business development.
Yeah, that's that
I'm not
noise.
saying that's my voice, but there is that opinion out there because there was inbound opportunities. They didn't have to be hunting ultimately. They were farming. They were farming and cultivating. They weren't hunting. So, and then there's also a certain age of people who did the old school way and who get it, but they never had these tools. So that was off their, their own blood, sweat, and tears, etc. So we're in this place of, you can be giving these MQLs, but does the person, the consultant, the BDM, salesperson, whatever you want to call them, do they know what to do with it? Mm-hmm. And it's recognizing that an MQL, there's still work to be done. It's not going to just convert itself. That's just the starting point. That allows you to narrow down what would otherwise be cold calling to the ether to actually understanding buyer's intent and focusing your efforts. It is further being hindered in the last 6 months, or maybe a little bit longer, because some of the mechanisms we use to understand buyer's intent, and that could be in emails and click-throughs and lead scoring and even actions taking on the website. IT security is getting pretty savvy and tighter. So the bots are clicking on the email links, and you don't know what it is. It could be the company, the end client company. It could be a legitimate person who's clicked on it, who's engaged with it, but that same company might have a bot that's also doing that. So the bot effectively nullifies the real action.
And the click-through rates can be skewed and or completely obliterated because of the automations that are in place.
Correct.
From a safety perspective,
and there are ways around, not ways around it, but I think there's a new, for us, we're developing a new definition of how do we qualify, and it will probably bring what we would call an MQL, and it needs to come with a more obvious, significant action earlier on. So at the end of the day, they aren't, a bot isn't doing the whole form. The bot is not filling out a form as part of this IT security. So you need to bring that higher value, stickier piece of content or whatever it might be earlier, get the contacts to qualify themselves in through a form, and then you start nurturing that group versus, which is throwing it on its head a little bit, the buying data, all the data and chucking them in a funnel.
Yeah, you just hit on a point as well, and kind of got me thinking of all of the times being agency side, recruitment agency side, never once did we ever think or talk about lead scoring. but actually the call for leads has been the thing that, marketing must deliver leads, especially in this market. It's tough. It's really tough.
Lead
Would
scoring.
you be able to score that?
Well, I think it's hard. I think if I'm thinking back, I probably started properly doing lead scoring about 6 or 7 years ago, but that came alongside marketing automation technology getting embedded.
Similar
So
time.
prior to that, it would have been, maybe some people did it. I wasn't one of them.
doing it in
You
tech.
could have been doing it manually and scoring it through.
No,
but
attribution, I think, from a large scale marketing strategy stuff, especially on the tech side, it's been around for a very long time.
But it's when you get the multi point. It's just
The
like anything
multi-touch
else.
points,
Multi-touch point. It's unless you have the technology that helps you aggregate it, it's very hard to be pulling it from all these different sources.
And when we're talking about the agencies that we're probably reaching, it is that sub 50, the level of technology, the amount of technology that you'd have for marketing and or your CRM capabilities, you're going to be limited. So what is the best way of measuring that value of that lead, and how can we support marketers who are trying to be supportive of that sales outreach?
Yeah, and it's beyond that, isn't it? And then what do you need to tell the board? Like, what's the next step? You need to know that as a marketer and as a sales leader, but what's the next step?
Yeah.
What does that mean for your pipeline? What does that mean for forecasting? What does that, what does the board need to know about that? Because it's not individual leads, is it?
So is it kind of going back to looking again at the sort of platforms that we operate on? I mean, our websites, obviously, everybody's got a website. We used to think about click-throughs from job ads and the job boards and the advertising that we've got going on. Do people still put so much of their marketing budget behind job boards, or are they pushing it through their own website?
One of my favorite metrics, and it's pretty basic, but one of my favorite metrics is source of conversion.
Yeah.
So whether that's in a recruitment agency world, that is, where's the source, where did the candidate come from that came onto the website and then converted, or where's the source of, whatever client event you have, conversion event that drove it. Because what that metric does for you from a marketer's standpoint is it allows you to channel and funnel your energy. And it takes away we just have to be on TikTok because we have to be everywhere. It allows you to actually say, no, actually 60% of our conversions come from this channel. So let's maybe not spend 60% of our time. It's not that linear, but let's put more effort in this.
Yeah.
This looks like a new one right now. We're seeing CVs. Haven't seen client leads yet, but I'm sure they're coming. We're seeing CVs come through recruitment agency websites from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Brand new channel that wasn't around, not that long ago. Relatively.
But also as well, chat or any of the other AI acting as search engines. Yeah. So again, converting through content and your site
which also brings SEO into question. I read a Forbes article quite recently that the wider market is saying that websites are seeing anywhere between a 15 and 60% drop in SEO traffic as a result of not so much ChatGPT, but the answer that comes up on Google. Word on the street, nobody's calculated it yet, but recruitment agency marketers are saying about 5% down year on year. So it sounds like we're under that. That's not scientific. However, that's just the word on the streets.
That's interesting. We ran a survey recently where we spoke to thousands of agencies, both UK, US and Australia. And we asked them what are their big challenges at the moment. And the number one by a country mile was BD, but very closely followed by that was metrics to be able to report on where that's coming from, what spend is, what good BD looks like and where it's coming from. When we then later so we did that via a survey. When we then later spoke to them, they all came back with the same kind of message, which is, how do I leverage technology to help that BD? Because BD has changed, as you were saying, Kirsty, in the last few years, where it's been mainly inbound. It was, coming back after the pandemic, it really was just, how do I place people? One of the things I find really interesting in this is, especially in recruitment agencies, of course, is they're managing two funnels. Their product has arms, legs, and an opinion, and they have to match those funnels up. it's not, I build a product and it does exactly what we tell it to do. Whereas in recruitment, you're actually managing two funnels and they have to merge at the same time with the same requisite. And you're managing both those things. And often we do talk about BD of bringing new business in, but of course that looks like candidates as well.
Yeah. And that experience as well between, dealing with an agency from a client perspective and or a candidate perspective, that experience is literally that point in time where it all comes together. Yeah. And if you've not got consistency and you've not got the value proposition nailed, if you've not got your messaging nailed, I don't think any metric ever will give you what that looks like. Or maybe it's just as simple as a 0 or a 1. It literally is or it's not. Maybe that's the point where we're now kind of really, kind of correlating a result based on that moment in time where a candidate and or a client says, yes, I want to work with you.
But is that, so going back to our original premise here, is what we're talking about is CEOs seeing the value of marketers and marketers really feeling like they're adding value. Is that yes or no, effectively 0 or 1? Is that enough?
I don't know whether or not it's about bringing the conversation, the number of conversations to that point, the number of conversations. And again, we can go into the weeds with it. And I don't think we're going to get a right
or wrong answer.
No, but it almost is like you kind of almost have to collaboratively talk about the number of conversations initiated and held. And
interestingly, Glenn Southam commented on a post this week, and I told him I was going to steal it, so I'm stealing it. He says his ethos or mantra for the year is conversations, not conversions. So focus on conversation, because then I guess from the marketing standpoint, you can lead that into, okay, sales need to convert them, but the more conversations we're having.
Isn't conversation the power of brand as well? So we can get all theory based on this, Matt, as well. So throw in what you think. Well, there's a kind of bit of theory that we studied as marketeers way back hundreds of years ago, which was all about, you spend 60% of your time building brand, you do 40% of your time building demand.
See, you've talked 95 and 5. I talk 95 and 5. You spend 95% of your time talking to the wider audience, your total addressable market, right? 5% of the time talking to those that you want to convert, like the ones that are in that bit.
I think this has been the number that's on the street lately.
Okay.
But I think because it correlates with they're not a buyer in our world. This could be different in other industries, but in our world, they are only a buyer 5% of the time.
Okay.
Because they don't always
think about the candidate world.
To
Matt's point of two funnels,
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting.
It is. Everybody's in the market to be a candidate, right? And be a job seeker, but they're not all in the market.
Yeah, I work a 90-10 rule, so it's not too far off yours.
We're
all different.
But I've also seen the power of not producing brand. So in a startup space, when you are trying to compete with those very big brands out there, especially if you're if you're new to a market, you're trying to set up even your first 5 years. I ran a company called Vantage way back when I had hair, and what we. But what was interesting there was the investors were like, don't worry about brands, that will build itself. And you're like, no, it really won't. It'll only build itself with people we're already selling to. Those people we know that, and I said that 10% or that 5% of who's active. Brand is a much longer term strategy, and asking any business, especially a small business, to buy into that is very, very hard. And I've worked with many scaling tech companies over the years, and it's understanding when and where to position that brand, because often your budgets are very limited in that time, but it is an investment in the future. I worked at many years ago. I worked for BT running their corporate sales, and what I found interesting there was when we went to market, people would automatically put us through RFPs, and they'd say, "Oh no, you're BT, of course you're at the table." Well, that was years and years of brand that got us there. When I went to a niche telecoms company, who are you? Why should you be here? Like, what do you stand for? What do you do? There's got to be a real comfortable split when you're growing that says the more you grow, I think the more you need to put into brand. if you can spare that money, that's a long-term objective. And we now today will do events which we know are purely branding opportunities.
So do you own that? Do you co-own any metrics around that, Matt? So to your point about the collaboration between you and the marketer, do you own anything around brand, and what do those metrics look like?
So they look very different for the both of us, but yes, we have a joint metric. What that looks like at the moment is in the brand piece, it is about impressions, engagement, and when and how they interact with the stuff that we're putting out, whether that be collateral or events or whatever that may be. What I find interesting in that is when we track that over time, how people might buy from us 18 months later that we've had touch points with in very nondescript, what I would call very easy to digest marketing. So that might be we spoke to them at an event, it might be they came onto one of our webinars and we've not heard from them, but we can actually track the influence they've had over a much longer period of time. If you're not looking at that wider piece, what you do is you go, oh yeah, our salesperson rang out to them and they've converted everything. Aren't they amazing? And well done them. They have converted it. But how many touch points, how much interaction have they had with your brand before that says, when you pick up the phone, oh yeah, I know who you guys are. I know what you do. I know what you stand for. I know what you're trying to do. That is a much harder metric to measure, but still a very valid one in my opinion.
There's a great analogy, actually, I read years ago. The example was iPhone, but you can use anything for this. And I realize that is not the same as the B2B world we're talking about here. But the example goes that there was a launch of a new iPhone and somebody saw it on, the man in this scenario saw it on some review site. So kind of the early day influencer. So even pre-Instagram, but let's say it was Instagram or maybe it was a review site, whatever. Because he'd gone on there, it starts following him around the internet. Yeah. He's seeing it everywhere. Because he's seeing it, and maybe he was on Curry's site, because he's seeing it, he's now getting served up with Curry's adverts. He's now getting into Curry's mailing distribution list. And he purchases the iPhone on payday from an email that happened to land in his inbox. He made his decision about buying that iPhone back when he first read the review.
Yeah.
And yes, put recruitment world on it. We now have the B2B pieces. There's actual person in between it. But that's the age-old challenge with attribution.
Yeah. And we talk about no ego, right? It's also an ego problem because marketing want to claim it and sales want to claim it, right? The person on the day wants to claim it versus the attribution and all of those steps. And to your point, Matt, interestingly, your impressions, your engagement that you're measuring for that is what we just called vanity metrics.
Yeah. And actually the Google model, the ZMOT model, the 0 moment in time, that is exactly what you were just talking about. It's where the decision's made ahead of the purchase. And actually the conversations that you've had at stands, the impression that someone's left when they've said, hi, do you want this cuddly toy? Oh, have you got kids at home? Da, da, da. And it's the swag. And it's the swag that we kind of go, oh, God, I've got to spend thousands of my marketing budget on pens or cuddly toys or whatever it might be. But actually, that single bit of fluff that we talk about, cutting out of this plan is the thing that actually really endeared that relationship, or at least gave them an opportunity to have a conversation. And so attribution's really difficult, especially for an agency, right? You're one person having a conversation with millions of people over the course of the year because you're talking about, have you got a vacancy that you want filling? We do this particular tiny, needle in the haystack type job, and we can do it brilliantly. And yeah, we might be 400 years old like everybody else, but, we actually really do know where that one person who fits through the eye of that needle actually is, and we can introduce you to them. So there's so much noise, but it's the resonance, it's the brand promise, it's the brand essence of when you met that person, had a conversation with them, you gave them an impression, and that impression's lasting. But you can't account for that. Can you?
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, you're referring to as a vanity metric. I love that because I find it really interesting. One of the things that And one of the things I've struggled with in terms of educating sales teams is, especially if you're a frontline person, so if you are an SDR or an AE that is outbounding, they will call that person and say, I've had success, I've done well. From a senior leadership thing, I actually don't care where it's come from or where the influence is, as long as I can measure it, because I want to replicate that. So I don't care if 80% comes from outbound sales or 80% comes from marketing or from a joint. It's about being able to measure it and then understand where do I invest in the future for that. We can celebrate individual success. Well done to that SDR that booked that large meeting that turned into a large deal. Well done the AE. Thanks to marketing. We can shout them all out. But actually, what I care about is understanding where they are coming from in the first place, because I just want to be able to replicate the good and diminish the bad.
I think you've just nailed it, Matt. It's not about who, it's about where. That final decision hurdle is that marker. And then you should be able to track all of the touch points all the way up to that particular decision, because there you've got the person actually saying yes at a particular moment in time. And this is the reason why. And if you can't get that from a verbal kind of commitment, you should be able to track. They've received emails, they've been on the newsletter, they've attended a couple of webinars, they've been to an event.
They've been retargeted.
We've been retargeted. We've spent money on bringing that relationship to bear. And I think that it takes a village, particularly in tech. Like, it takes a village now. And I think that's a really brilliant CEO mentality, board mentality, where they look and they go, to Matt's point earlier, this is a go-to-market team. This is not a single sales leader with a team of sales professionals, sort of supported by marketing, making stuff look pretty at the bottom. It's actually a go-to-market team. We're using intelligent plays. We're talking the right language. We're giving the right examples. We're showcasing the right way our products and services support and give value back.
Great.
So how do we actually, Matt, how do we get the boardroom to listen? How do we get the leadership? How do we, if you had advice for a marketer to become more commercial and go forth and claim it, what would that look like?
Don't be afraid of having the tough conversations and putting your head above the parapet, because sometimes you're going to get shot, and that's okay. That's part of, first through the wall is always bloody, but
please don't
the way
get shot.
The way I look at it is this. Fab, our CMO, and he's a legend, and he's on our sales calls, and I attend his marketing calls. So that actually, when we go to when I'm reporting to the board, I'm able to give a joint message. Our message doesn't come from marketing; it comes from that GTM team. The metrics that marketing own, he reports on, and he owns those. He owns the budget and all of those things. But actually, our overarching things actually tie in together. So I will also report on events, how they've gone. I report on the marketing updates we're doing, ABM strategies. We both report on them, and whilst that is sometimes we've duplicated what we've done there, that's fine, because that strengthens the message to the board that it is not one voice that's lone in this. You need the support from the other board members there who are championing that cause as well.
Love that. Thank you, Matt. I think we could talk about this for an awfully long time. And probably do and have been talking about it for an awfully long time. But it is genuinely positive to hear, Matt, that commercial outcomes can be co-owned, sales and marketing, and it can work really well. So in summary, can you tell us what's the point people need to take away?
Yeah, I think it's about not letting your ego get in the way of key fundamental goal attainment. And that is, we all own one goal in the business, and those are the business overarching goals. Don't be afraid to let others kind of take that limelight and support them in it. That as revenue leaders, that means like leaning into our marketing counterparts or our product or operations, whatever that looks like. Because if you are a single team, that is what success looks like. If you're an individual owner, so let's say you are a scaling business, you're the CEO and you don't have that expertise around you, go and look for it. Whether that looks like fractional, whether that looks like groups, whether that looks like, even if it's just chats on LinkedIn, go and look for that expertise that you don't have and support yourself with it, because I see that time and time again. Those who really succeed have an army around them and next to them, and not necessarily just standing behind them. So it's my key takeaway is this: it's just that lean in, don't be afraid to make some tough decisions and have awkward conversations, and surround yourself with people who are like-minded and have the same goals and outputs as you.